ask you about the things that you have said about Arsene Wenger and about the things that Arsene Wenger has said about you. What is your reaction?
Now Wenger and Mourinho are going at it on the touchline. John Moss having to step between the two managers.
It's obvious that my words were strong words.
I don't know what I said. That was anything malicious in what I said.
Can be here saying to me, please comment what Arsene Wenger did. Please comment what this one did. I'm not interested in it.
Honestly, I don't listen to what he says.
Wenger complaining is normal.
I'm embarrassed for him, honestly.
But if he wants to carry on comments about us, other strong words will arrive.
Arsene Wenger versus Jose Mourinho. It's really like a Shakespearean drama playing out on the pitch. We're talking a decade of these two titans trading barbs both on and off the pitch, complete with these tactical battles, mind games, and enough tension to power a small city. They're both men who are not used to being in second place, and it all starts in the mid-2000s.
Arsenal have gone through an entire league campaign without losing. The first time it's happened for over 100 years.
Wenger's Arsenal, the Invincibles as they were known for this beautiful flowing style of play, they were the team to beat.
You know, when you're looking at standards, these have set the standards. They are the Invincibles.
Thank you and good morning everybody and welcome to Stamford Bridge. I'm delighted this morning to formally announce Jose Mourinho as the new manager of Chelsea with immediate effect.
The brash new manager at Chelsea who immediately challenges that established order.
Again, please don't call me arrogant because what I'm saying is true. I'm European champion, so I'm not one of the bottle. I think I'm a special one.
You could argue that Mourinho's arrival and his immediate success really disrupted the balance of power that Wenger had so carefully cultivated.
Chelsea have scored 15 minutes into the new era. Mourinho has arrived, and he's arrived in style.
Suddenly, there was this new kid on the block playing a very different style of football and winning trophies.
Chelsea are the champions. 50 years on, Jose Mourinho has shown the world that he is indeed the special one.
So when Wenger starts taking jabs at Chelsea's style, even calling it at one point a sport in danger, you get the sense that this is personal, because it's like he's saying that Mourinho's brand of football is a threat to the soul of the game. So then Mourinho really goes for it. And in response to all these critiques, he calls Wenger a voyeur, says that Wenger is obsessed with Chelsea, even compares him to someone peering through binoculars at their neighbors. I mean, brutal. And it's interesting because Wenger does fire back, but there's a defensiveness there that we hadn't seen from him before.
I don't know what I said. That was anything malicious in what I said.
And Mourinho, being the absolute strategist that he is, he doubles down. And this is where we get the 120-page dossier comment.
It's obvious that my words were strong words, but it's also obvious that we have a file of 120 pages about quotes from Mr. Wenger in relation to Chelsea Football Club and to our work. And I think is enough.
He claims that he's been keeping this massive file of every negative thing Wenger has said about Chelsea, fueling this perception that Wenger was preoccupied with Mourinho's team. And it's easy to get caught up in the drama of it all, but we can't forget that both Mourinho and Wenger were incredibly successful managers in their own right. They weren't just talking the talk, they were walking the walk, winning trophies along the way. You could argue that their rivalry, however heated it became, actually fueled their success. But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because that same intensity, that drive to one-up the other, could also become a distraction, pulling their focus away from the bigger picture. It really sets the stage for just years and years of back and forth of these little digs. But here's the thing. Even when Mourinho leaves Chelsea to manage Inter Milan in 2008, the rivalry doesn't miss a beat. If anything, it gets more intense. So my question is, why? Why couldn't they just let it go? It kind of all comes to a head in 2014, when Mourinho returns to Chelsea for his second stint. And this time, it felt like the stakes were even higher. Both managers under immense pressure, Wenger trying to rebuild after years without a trophy, and Mourinho determined to prove that he was still the special one. And then there's the whole Juan Mata situation.
Arsene Wenger said this about Juan Mata's transfer to Manchester United.
Chelsea has already played twice against Man United, and so they don't play again anymore. So we should at least We could have sold him last week.
And this wasn't just another transfer, this was a statement. Chelsea sells their two-time Player of the Year to Manchester United, and Wenger was not buying it. Publicly questions the transfer. Suggests that Mourinho is trying to manipulate the system. Even throws in a barb about fixture scheduling for good measure. It felt like he took it personal.
When he says that this is not fair, I think what is not fair is that this team always has the best days to play.
And then, this is where things really heat up. Wenger, in an interview, makes this seemingly innocuous comment about some managers being motivated by a fear to fail.
Why do you think it is that, apart from you and Manuel Pellegrini, every other manager is saying, no, we can't win the title, we're not contenders?
It's fear to fail.
And Mourinho, well, Mourinho pounces. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that his response was brutal.
You know, he is a specialist in failure. I'm not.
He calls Wenger a specialist in failure, openly mocks Arsenal's trophy drought.
But the reality is that he's a specialist because 8 years without a piece of silverware, that's failure.
This wasn't just a witty comeback. This was a calculated character assassination. And that quote, as harsh as it was, became a defining moment in the rivalry. It symbolized the power shift that was happening in the Premier League. Well, I think you have to look at the power dynamic at the time. Mourinho was at the peak of his powers. Wenger is facing all this criticism for his lack of silverware. Mourinho senses weakness, and he goes straight for the jugular. And it worked. You could just feel the air leave the room when he said it. It was like he landed a knockout punch. And then later that year at Stamford Bridge, March 2014, Chelsea absolutely demolished Arsenal. Wenger's 1,000th game in charge. And then later that year at Stamford Bridge,
another one.
We get the infamous touchline shove.
Now Wenger and Mourinho are going at it on the touch. John Moss having to step between the two managers.
It felt like an inevitable escalation. You've got all this simmering tension, all those years of verbal sparring, and it finally boils over into this very physical confrontation. It all happened so fast, they're arguing about a foul. Next thing you know, Wenger is in Mourinho's face.
Pause. That was crazy.
It was unbelievable. You do not see that every day, even in the world of football. Afterward, of course, both managers downplayed the incident.
What's your version of events of what happened?
Nothing.
So no big deal for you, the fact he put his hands on you, pushed you? On reflection though, what will you say about it? Because you could well face sanction, because you have had previous, as you know.
I say absolutely nothing.
But it revealed that this was about more than just words. There was genuine dislike there, this deep-seated animosity that went beyond just professional disagreements. And as Mourinho's second stint at Chelsea starts to, I don't know, kind of unravel a bit, the digs at Wenger, they just keep coming. It's like even when there's nothing left to say, they still find new ways to get under each other's skin. So Mourinho's second act at Chelsea is starting to falter a bit. And you might expect him to just go quiet, right? Focus on righting the ship. But that's not really Mourinho's style, is it? Instead of a little introspection, we get even more outward aggression. Wenger is still firmly in his crosshairs. And there's this one quote from that period that really highlights this. Mourinho, during a press conference, launches into this tirade about Wenger being the king, this untouchable figure who is seemingly immune to criticism. And it's brilliant.
I think in this country, only one manager is not under pressure. Everybody is under pressure. We cannot lose matches. We cannot be below the expectations. We have to reach our objectives. There is one that, for some reason, is outside that list. Can speak about the referees before the game. Can speak about the referees after the game. Can push people in the technical area. Can cry in the morning. Can cry in the afternoon. Nothing happens. Can be not achieve. Keep the job. Still the king. It's a privilege.
Incredibly deviant. Because by creating this image of Wenger as the king, he's painting himself as the underdog, the victim of some grand conspiracy. Never mind that Chelsea are the defending champions at this point, and Arsenal are still trying to climb back to their former glory. Classic deflection. If his team isn't playing well, it can't possibly be his fault. It has to be someone else's. And who better to cast as that villain than Arsene Wenger? The embodiment of everything that Mourinho seems to define himself against. And of course, media loved it. Persecuted genius versus the established elite. The twilight of their rivalry. There are still these moments of, I think, genuine insight, where their comments, however, barbed they are, they reveal something, I think, deeper about their philosophies. Like when Wenger questions the, I don't know if exorbitant is the word, but the very large transfer fee paid for Paul Pogba. And Mourinho's response is just perfect. He says, to have this problem, you need to be at one of the top clubs in the world. Right, like Wenger is out of touch, stuck in some bygone era where money was no object in football. And it really gets to the heart of, I think, what made their rivalry so compelling. It was this microcosm of this larger debate within football, between the old guard and the new guard, between idealism and pragmatism. What's the legacy? Did they push each other to be better? Or did it ultimately just distract from the game they both claim to love? It's tough to say.
A very intelligent person, and one of the best football managers in the history of football.
As the years went by, it kind of felt like that constant friction started to ease off a bit. And this shift, well, it became pretty public eventually. I remember when Wenger announced he was leaving Arsenal in 2018, Mourinho's comments were, well, surprisingly warm, actually. He called Wenger a sweet enemy.
Pause. That was crazy.
And said he was one of the best football managers in the history of football. Quite something, eh? And Wenger himself, sort of towards the end of his time at Arsenal, he seemed to hint at wanting less conflict, acknowledging that maybe underneath all the rivalry, there was still a level of professional respect there.
You should give me a little bit of peace for my final weeks and not try to push me into a final confrontation. You know, I want to go peaceful.
The real standout moment for me has to be April 2018, Wenger's last visit to Old Trafford as Arsenal boss. What Manchester United did that day, it was pure class. Well, before the match, Sir Alex Ferguson, another old rival of Wenger's, of course, he came out onto the pitch, and he presented Wenger with this beautiful silver vase on behalf of Man United, just to honor his, 22 years at Arsenal. But here's the kicker, the really symbolic part. It involves Mourinho. The inscription on the vase, it read, presented to Arsene Wenger by Sir Alex Ferguson, CBE, and Jose Mourinho, on behalf of Manchester United, the guy who'd been his biggest, most vocal rival for years, officially part of this tribute. It really felt like a turning point, a public acknowledgement of respect, overcoming all those years of, fighting. The fierce rivalry felt like it had genuinely melted away into mutual respect. So I guess the big takeaway here is pretty clear, right? Even the most heated rivalries, like this one in top-level sport, can evolve. Respect and acknowledging someone's achievements can actually win out in the end. That Old Trafford moment is just such a powerful symbol of that. It's quite wholesome, really. It wasn't always pretty, but it was definitely captivating. And it reminds us that even at the highest level of football, where it's supposed to be about tactics and formations, human emotion, pride, insecurity, ambition, those things still hold sway. And the media, well, they understand that. And they will continue to fan those flames, won't they? Because we can't help but watch. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into one of football's most enduring rivalries. Thank you for joining us.